hear the Savior say, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, watch and pray. Find in me thine all in all. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Jesus died my soul to save. My lips shall still repeat, Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow.
Wow, thank you very much once again. God bless you. This is another moment in the presence of the Lord. And all we can let you know is that God is still in the business of changing lives of his people. Your life is about to be transformed for better. Is about to be transformed for better. If you have a neighbor there, just tell them, my life is about to be transformed for better. Just let them know that God is not yet finished with your life. He's about to do something that will amaze even the neighbors that knows you, even those people who know that each and every month your house has to be locked. God is about to surprise them. You're about to live the life that you have never imagined before. And all you need to do is to put just a little faith in God. For the Bible says that if you have faith, a little as a mustard seed, then you can move mountain. But Jesus never said that our faith should remain so little as a mustard seed. But he said The only thing you need to introduce yourself to God is a little faith. Then God will make that faith grow and grow and grow until it becomes a big sycamore tree. So as your faith grows and as you expound in the Word of God, as you see the promises of God, as you continue claiming the promises of Jehovah, let the hand of Jehovah God be with you. One thing that you should know as a Christian, is even as a person that know nothing about Christ, is that Christ came and He died for us. And the only thing that connects us with Jesus is our faith. Because for sure you never saw Him die, but you only read about it. So what is this peculiar thing that makes that Jesus who died on the cross about 2,000 over years ago, what makes Him to come when we call Him? Yet He was born and He was raised in Jerusalem and Israel, and after 33 years He died and He was crucified because of you and me. But what makes it peculiar, that even today when I call Him, He comes and heals. Yet I was not there in those days. What makes this Jesus to be so good that each and every day, whenever we call upon Him, He answers? There is a peculiarity about Jesus that you need to understand, child of God. Maybe you have never thought about it. Maybe it has never hit your mind. But today, maybe I can tell you, I can remind you. Remember that person, that relative who died so many years ago. And even today you try to call upon him. He cannot come. And if he can, it's only the demonic powers of the devil which can take his image and behave as if it is him. But for sure he cannot appear. But this Jesus that I'm about to talk to you about, the Bible says, there he was, he is today, and he's going to be tomorrow. He changes not. He lives and he continues to be. So that Jesus is the one I want to talk to you about. And today I want to talk to you about a new dimension, because Jesus said that after this, everything that is over, there is a new dimension that is about to release upon the church. And the church, you and I being part of the church. The Bible says in the book of Ephesians, chapter number 5 and verse 15, so be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. That you be careful how you live. Don't live carelessly. Don't live life that has no purpose. Don't live life that has no vision. Don't live life that is going nowhere, is not focused, you're here nor there. But live life that is which you are careful. Being careful is when you know that I'm focused and I have mission to accomplish. And don't live like fools. So if you compare your life with the life of a fool, maybe you may say, my life is different. But what is the perspective of God when He is speaking to us these words? Many other times we live in our own knowledge and wisdom here on earth, but without knowing that our wisdom and our knowledge is the foolishness to God. So you need to gauge and to gauge your life with the standard of life, and the standard of life is the Word of God. So how you live today, gauge your living with the Word of God, and make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. This is God who is speaking. He's saying that we make the most of every opportunity. We make the most, because life is full of opportunities. Maybe you don't see them because you have not opened your eyes. For even the Bible says that they'll not be blind, but I'll blinden their eyes. They'll not see opportunities. But for you and me, because we are children of God, and you who is not, you're about to become a child of God. Because after this broadcast, I'm going to pray with you. I'm going to usher you. I'm going to usher you. And as I usher you to Christ, you're going to become a son of the kingdom of God. So, Jesus is saying, make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Jesus knew that there are going to come some evil days. But what are we going to get out of these evil days? We can look around and see everything is turning and changing in a negative way. Even our hearts and our mind, we are filled with fear that the number 666 is about to come. Maybe it's going to come through vaccine or something. I'm not even aware about it. But something I'm sure about. If Jesus said it's going to come, it's going to come. But for those people who will prepare themselves, God will give them some understanding. God will open. He'll give you some eloquency of the mind that things will come. Liberation will flow from heaven, from the hand of the Father. And these things will not come unaware. God will give you knowledge about them. So don't put fear inside your heart. Just know that God is on your side. If you don't believe it, just know that God is on your side. And the Bible says, don't act thoughtlessly. Don't act thoughtlessly. What is the word of God telling us? That in your action, you should have thought about what you're about to do. Your action should reflect what has been going through your mind. So the Bible says, don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. Understand what the Lord wants you to do. Is another thing to hear, is another thing to understand. Many of us, we have heard the word of God, but we have not understood that word. And that is the reason why we live a life and we have been pinned down by the devil. The enemy has pressed us down. And even now, as I speak to you, you know the issues that you're facing in life. Being that we do things thoughtlessly without understanding the word of God. Today I'm calling you from wherever you are, from every corner of the world, that you may understand this word. This word, after you understand it, is going to open your mind. It's going to give you new ideas. Ideas will flow in your life like never before. Things will change like never before. Things will move around. I can sense some turnaround which are about to come to your life after you begin to understand this word. Today, as I stand here to speak this word, it's not that we are special people. Maybe that is why we succeed in life and our lives has changed. But you are people like you. We eat whatever you eat. We live like the way you live. Maybe we sleep the way you sleep. But the only difference with our life and your life is that we have come to a point of understanding the word of God and knowing that the word of God is the source of our life. Without this word of the Lord, we may not live again. Praise the living God. And if we live, we are going to live empty life. So, we came to understand that if we don't want our life to be empty, if we don't want our life to be without a cause, without a direction, the word of the Lord has to be understood by us. And I made a choice in my life, and I made a choice with my family, that I'm going to put the word of God as a priority in my life. Before I go to work, as I wake up, before I sleep, anything I do, I purpose to put this word as a priority. Because the moment you put the word of God as a priority, there's a new dimension God opens in your life. You don't struggle as other people struggle. You don't force things as other people try to force them. You don't need to bribe your way out as other people bribe their way out. But God works with you, because a dimension that God operates in is a dimension of favor. When you want to understand that God is in your life, the first thing that you need to look at, if you live a life of favor, God, the moment God knocks at your door and he comes and he operates from within yourself, one thing that you're going to understand is favor. Favor will come from every corner. God will make sure that the dimension of favor, you operate in that dimension. So today you may look at your life and ask me, Pastor, what is favor? Favor is that unmerited grace. It's when you walk and people favor you more. Even those people who don't know you, they favor you. I want to remind you that favor of the Lord is seen in different dimensions. Let me give you a story which you can relate with what I'm talking about. Sometimes back, I went in a new country, and in this country I was visiting, and I went there on a business conference. And in this business conference, I want to tell you how God positioned his people, those people who operate in a different dimension. Because Christianity is all about dimension. When you're born again, there's a dimension that God praises you in. But that dimension is not there for you to dwell in. After some times, the more you continue to seek on the Lord, he ushers you in a different dimension. There are different dimensions in the kingdom of the Lord. And those dimensions, they are not there for special people. They are there for me and you. And what you need to understand, God wants you to understand those dimensions so that you can desire of them. The Bible says, desire and think of these things, that you think of these things. That is what the Bible tells us. So, in your country, I happen to know some few people, but these people, we didn't have a very intimate relationship with them. It's just the way you can know somebody is in a certain country. And one day I just contacted one person, and he told me he contacted me, and he told me, I've seen over your Facebook that you are in our country, and it is very wrong that you are not speaking to us, because you're supposed to count us as your family when you come here. And I want to tell you that God works in a miraculous way. The only thing you need to do is to connect with God, and the miraculous life comes to you. You don't need to do so many things. I've seen Christians trying, doing a lot of things. Although I'm not saying that you don't put hard work in your life. Hard work is a must. But all you need to do, put hard work in the things of God. And then after you put hard work in the things of God, God will sort you out. So this guy calls me and he tells me, I saw you in my country, but it's very wrong that you came and you never informed me. I want to do this and this. And he mentioned a lot of things that he wanted to do to me, and actually good things. And he came where I was staying, and he refused that I could not stay there because he is there for many years and he knows a lot of things. And to cut the long story short, all the budget that I had done for the trip, I never used. I used like a 10% of it, because God's favor was working with me. And today I want to speak about dimension of favor. Dimension of favor is a dimension that God commands people on your behalf. Favor is unmerited grace, something that you don't qualify for. And the Bible says that we live careful life, so that we don't live like fools. Fools are people who know nothing about favor. I've heard so many topics and so many people speak and say they don't know anything about favor. But I'm here to tell you, yes, I believe in hard work. I don't question hard work. I believe in it. Even myself, I'm a hard worker. I work and I wake up very early, and I wake and I do, and I have many ideas which I try and to implement, and many of them there I've already implemented them. So I believe in hard work. But apart from hard work and the education, because so many people believe in education, it's okay. I believe in education, and even right now. We do a lot of study here and there. We do a lot of courses just to make sure that we are at par to the people that we minister to. Because even there where you are, I know you are an informed person. I know people nowadays are informed. You don't want to talk to people in a language if you are not informed and they are informed. You need to speak to them in a language they can understand and they receive you. But my point is, people, as a people who have filled our mind with the world, we are believing God not. But we are believing our education 100%. Knowing that if today I go to university, I'm going to get a job. But I'm here to tell you, life is not all about education. It's not all about hard work. But life is about combination of what you can do and what God can do. It's one thing to know God can do something, and it's another thing to know God will do it. Because knowing God will do it is when you have faith within yourself. And knowing that God can do it is just another story that God can do it, but you don't care much about what He can. But I'm here to talk to you about dimensions of favor. And favor, God commands favor. Anywhere the presence of God is, favor must be there. The Bible says that anywhere Jesus went, He did good. Meaning that He changed things. He made things happen. He made things come to pass. Things happened because His presence was there. Miracles came because He was there. Mighty and things that you cannot explain, the power behind them, came to pass because Jesus went there. So, and it is not different in our days. We are living in the days whereby Jesus has been neglected. That's why favor cannot be seen in our lives. But I want just to introduce a very simple way of attracting Jesus in your life. If you can read the Bible and tells you where Jesus went, He did good. It means if you introduce Him in your life, the goodness that He carried gonna walk with you. So, you are not born again there. I'll introduce you to a Jesus who comes in your life and He changes your story. I'm speaking this because He changed my story. I was the poorest person when I came to this town. But today my story has changed. Why? Because that Jesus who I used to hear His stories, and maybe I told people I'm born again. I never used to live life as a born again person. But I came to understand this Jesus, I'm going to try this Jesus and make Him to be the Lord of my life. And I'm going to live with Him. And I'm going to seek after Him. And after doing so, my life changed. So, and when Jesus comes to your life, He comes with favor. So that wherever you go, favor goes with you. I don't know what you're passing through, but all you need is not so much. You don't need to know any people and friends in the government so that your life can continue. All you need to do is to introduce yourself to Jesus, and you start living with Jesus, and He will introduce you in a dimension that we call favor. Favor is a dimension in its own, and when you operate in a dimension of favor, people will fight you, but they will not win over you. People will insult you, but God will fight for you. God will favor you. You'll go beyond where you saw yourself going. You are going to originate from the lowest, but you're going to go to the top. God will make sure that your name will be heard over the radios and televisions. God will make sure that your life will be changed, and God will multiply you in a way that you never seen. The only thing you need to do is to seek the Lord and tell God, I want to operate in this dimension. It's a dimension I've not tasted. Maybe you tasted something little about it, but God wants you to live in that dimension. A dimension where you will not get out of it. That everywhere you're going to step, Favour will be your name. That God will favor you. When you go across the nations, people will favor you. When you go all over, people will favor you. I want to tell you a story. I went somewhere in an airport and I went behind the line because the queue was so long, and I went behind the queue. But somebody who was an air hostess saw me from afar, and somebody who we have never met before, but she was black, and she looked at me and told me, you just come. I didn't know where she was calling me to. And the queue was so huge and so long that people, I was thinking maybe I would finish maybe an hour or so on the queue. And she took me in the front of the queue, and I just signed in and got to where I went in to sit. But when I sat there, I was thinking about, why did she call me? And I came to understand. The Lord spoke to me and told me, there's a dimension I want you to taste. It's called the dimension of Favour. And I told God, what about this dimension? He told me, what happened? I command people for you. I wanted you to taste that dimension. People were asking themselves, who is this? That an air hostess would come and he pulled my bags and she assisted me to check in, and I checked in, and somebody who I never seen before. And everybody could look at me as I pulled one of my bag and I was checking in. People from behind the queue, they could look at me as I was going in. So that picture came back alive when I was seated in there. And God told me, that dimension called Favour is what I want you to get in. And from that day, my prayers changed, my life changed. Everywhere I go, the Favour of the Lord goes with me. That dimension is what I'm talking about. I want you to taste that dimension. I want you to get into that dimension. I want you to be ushered by the Spirit of God to that dimension. That you may know there is a better life than that life that you're used to. There is a better life that people who operate in that dimension live than a normal life. May God open your eyes, that you know what you can qualify for if you seek this Jesus. Today is another day we are sharing about Jesus, because the only way you can be able to be ushered in this dimension is when you dwell in his dwelling. And the dwellings of Jesus is the dwelling of heart. When he dwells in your heart, when he operates within you, just know you'll come some few days, pap, you're ushered in that dimension. I've seen people blessing me from nowhere. I've seen people who I've never met before becoming a blessing to me. I've had people contacting me without knowing where they got my number, just because there's a dimension which I operate in. It's not, all is not gone. You can be ushered in that dimension and you can operate in it. God can be there for you in this season. When everybody is complaining about economy, I'm not bragging, but I can tell you, God can put you in a level where you not complain. Because God will have done everything for you. God will make things to work behind the scenes, just to make sure that your life is changed and transformed. May God see you through in this season. that all things that you need, God will do them for you. When other people who will be complaining about the lack of money, the lack of everything, may you not complain, because God will have ushered you and had you. Today, I'm here to remind you that Jesus died for you, that you may be ushered in dimensions that normal men will never touch, that normal men will never get in. The only thing you need to do is to accept Him as your personal Savior, and above accepting Him, to know that He wants you to grow in faith. And the more your faith grows, the more you taste and get in those dimensions I'm talking about. We'll continue to share about dimensions, about Christian faith. And this is a topic I would want you to get and to understand. Because when you know about dimensions, that they are operated in the kingdom of God, there are things which you'll not mess with. There are things which you'll not lack. Because as a child of God, as a son of the kingdom, these are supposed to be your dimensions, which you're supposed to operate in, and which you're supposed to live in. God is not happy to see you poor. God is not happy to see you struggle and suffer. But God is happy when He sees you enjoy life. But enjoying life in Him being the foundation of your life. Today, child of God, I don't know what your life is up to, but I'm up to something with your life. Because God sent me to tell you that He wants you to operate in the dimension of favor. He wants you to operate in a dimension that nobody else is operating in. In the dimension, there's a dimension called wisdom that God ushers people in. There's a dimension of long life. There's a dimension of supply, and Jehovah Jireh becomes your God. Those are dimensions He's going to be speaking about, and so many more dimensions. But today, we are learning about dimension of favor. That God may favor you in everything you do. I pray today that God will favor you. I pray today that you will desire this dimension. That you will usher Jesus in your heart, and this dimension will once again operate in you. That God will make you to be favored in everywhere you go. May God bless you. I love you very much. My name is Pastor George Paul. I'm senior pastor here at Christland Church, and we lead people to worship God in the true way. We preach the gospel of Jesus Christ crucified on the cross, so that He may become a remedy of the sinful life that you used to live before. And He become an agent of change to your life, that you change from worse to better, that each and every day God will uplift you. Maybe you're there and you're not born again. I cannot close this broadcast without praying for your life. Father, in the name of Jesus, I pray for my viewers, wherever they are, those who are scattered all over the world. Father, I pray for them, that your love and the certainty of our lives, oh God, may once again be shed abroad for them to see. Lord God, I pray for the sick, that you may heal them. I pray for those people who are down, that you may uplift them. Lord, I pray for every viewer, whoever is believing for a miracle. Lord, I pray, may you usher them in this dimension, because this is a dimension of miracles. The dimension of favor is a dimension of unmerited grace. Lord God, I pray for them. Beginning from today, I declare and declare, none of them will sink. None of them will go below. But Jehovah God, you shall uplift them in the name of Jesus Christ. Their life will be blessed like never before. Your family will be blessed like never before. Your business will be blessed beyond your competitors in the name of Jesus Christ. God will make you shine in everything you do. God will make you to go above and beyond. God bless you. I love you very much. Maybe you're there and you're not born again. Just repeat this simple prayer after me, and it will have ushered you in Jesus. Father, in the name of Jesus, I come to you. I bring my life to you. I pray for your salvation to come in me. Write my name in the Lamb's book of life. That from today, I receive you as my Savior. I receive you, Jesus, as my salvation. And you, devil, I denounce you. You don't have anything in my life. Beginning from today, I accept and I purpose to follow Jesus. Holy Spirit, come in my heart and make a dwelling where you will lead me and guide me. In Jesus' name. Father, I pray for those people who have repeated this prayer, that, oh God, you shall touch and change their lives. Oh Lord, as they have accepted you, I pray that, Lord God, you shall release the Holy Ghost to dwell in them, and you shall give them the joy of salvation in the name of Jesus Christ. May God bless you wherever you are. We love you very much. You can reach out to us. You can send us email. That email on your screen. You can call us. That number on your screen. You can visit our church if you live nearby. We have people who come as far as 100 kilometers to fellowship with us. You can come. This church is a house of revelation. It's a house of revival. It's a house of miracles. It's a house of prayer. And you're believing God for you. So whatever you're believing God for, I pray that the Lord will usher you in the dimension of favor. God favor you. I love you very much. God bless you. We love you. We love you. Wow. Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Savior say, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, watch and pray. Find in me thine all in all. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Oh, now indeed I find thy power and thine alone can change the leper's spots and